Stanford University.
Welcome to Stanford Medicine's 11th Annual Contemplation by Design Summit. I'm Dr. Tia Rich, the founder and director of Contemplation by Design. It's my deep honor to introduce our speaker, Dr. Richard Miller, who will be guiding us through an interactive workshop titled iRest Yoga Nidra, Living, Healing, and Dying in Wholeness. Dr. Richard Miller is a clinical psychologist, author, researcher, yogic scholar, and spiritual teacher. He is a prominent figure in the field of mind-body wellness, best known as the developer of the Integrative Restoration iRest program of meditation, and founder and executive director of iRest Institute. His career, spanning over 5 decades, has been marked by significant contributions to the integration of Western psychology and neuroscience with the ancient non-dual wisdom teachings of yoga, tantra, Advaita, Taoism, and Buddhism. In addition to his role at the iRest Institute, Miller is co-founder of the International Association of Yoga Therapists, IAYT, founding editor of the Professional Journal of IAYT, and past president of the Institute for Spirituality and Psychology. These roles underline his commitment to bridging the gap between traditional spiritual practices and contemporary scientific understanding. His work, particularly in the area of trauma healing and wellness, has been influential in the yoga and psychology communities. Miller's unique approach combines his deep understanding of ancient spiritual teachings with his knowledge of modern psychology, making his contributions valuable to both the academic and the broader wellness communities. Miller's teachings and the practices he has developed are notable for their accessibility and applicability in modern life, reflecting his lifelong dedication to the study and integration of diverse spiritual and psychological practices. And now let's join together to warmly welcome Richard Miller.
Thank you, Tia. And thank you all for joining me on a Sunday evening when you could be doing something else to round out your weekend. A little bit about what I'd love to do tonight is take a moment just to welcome us in so we can ground and come into this presentation. Then I'm going to give a bit of an introduction about the program, how it came into being. And then what I'd like to do is walk you through the 10 steps experientially. Normally, I would take you through them as one long meditation, but I want to do it slightly differently tonight because you can go back to the earlier presentations I gave during this summit where I did a long Yoga Nidra 2 nights ago, and then I did a wonderful introduction to the inner resource, an extended introduction on that, which I'm going to do again tonight, but much more briefly. And then if we do have time, I'll see if I can weave it together as an ending meditation. We'll see how we go. But as Tia mentioned, I'd love this to be interactive. So at any time, raise your hand if something needs to be clarified, or if you want to ask me something that would be helpful in our moving along or your understanding what I'm presenting. So with that said, if you would take a moment, just resting back with your eyes open or closed, and just let your senses open to the environment and the sounds around you. Setting attention free so we're not trying to contain attention in any particular area at this moment in time. So set it free and notice how it wanders about from perception to perception. Some are like Teflon and attention just slides right off of them, but others are a little stickier where attention may linger for periods of time. And as attention lands on a particular perception, watch how the mind may come in, name it. It's assessing for safety. If you can have that assessment that right now you're secure and in a safe environment, then attention will keep moving along. And also notice how there's a particular thought, the I thought, how it may come in and exclaim, I'm sensing this, or I'm feeling this. As much as it's possible, we're not trying to stop these processes, but then once they've done what they do, can you set them aside, come back to the perception without the name, without the I thought taking ownership, just the pure perceiving. And as you do, notice how this acts on your entire body and mind. And just let attention wander around the body, noticing any tensions that may be carried into this moment, left over from your day or from your week. So we're shifting from thinking to really just sensing. Like, for instance, notice the sensations that are in and around the hinges of the jaw, mouth, and tongue. The touch of air as it enters the nostrils and caresses along the walls of the throat as it enters and exits the body. The natural sensations that are present in the shoulders and arms. The natural gentle expansion of the belly as breath comes in and how it then releases and relaxes during exhalation. And just notice perhaps the sensations where the body's touching the surfaces, providing support. So we're sensing, we might say, more from our heart and our belly than from our thinking mind. And take a few more moments just to notice if there's an intention that you're carrying with you into this presentation, what you might wish to take away from it or even leave behind. And setting the thinking mind aside again, just a moment of pure sensing. And when and if it feels right, continue just sensing without going into thinking, but let the eyes open and close several times so that as the eyes open in the world of visual colors and shapes comes in, it doesn't displace this underlying felt sense. you may begin to tap into. And let's keep tapping into this as we go along, because this is the beginning of what I call our inner resource, a place within ourselves that we can tap into that is ultimately an unshakable, unbreakable sense of well-being, and the ground from which then we meet every circumstance, every situation we find ourselves in all day long. So with that, I'd like to share my screen and just begin weaving in a little bit about this program. So iRest Yoga Nidra, back in the 70s when I was first introduced to it. The first time I experienced it in 1970, I actually had what I would call a life-changing experience. I walked out afterwards feeling not separate from the entire universe around me, and a subtle kind of depression that I had been carrying in me had evaporated. I felt this tremendous sense of joy and well-being that I began carrying with me. And it really stirred my imagination as to what was the practice that I had just engaged and how might I learn more about it. And to my, you might say, amazement, I began to meet a number of exquisite teachers over the years. My first teacher, a teacher of Mahayana Buddhism, who was also helping me learn the art of psychotherapist as I was becoming a psychologist. And he was helping me explore these ancient teachings that the Buddha had presented to us and given us as his gift, but also the teachings that lay behind the field, we might say, of yoga, Advaita Vedanta. I also came from a more Christian background, Episcopalian Protestant, and I also met up with a Jesuit priest who I hung out with for about a year because I was thinking of entering the ministry, which he ultimately helped me realize that was not my path. But along the way, I also met a Taoist master who was helping me understand the Taoist perspective of these kinds of teachings. I began sitting in Zen with a Zen master, Izumi Roshi from LA, Los Angeles, and a number of Advaitic non-dual teachers who I met here in the United States, as well as in India when I went on travels there on a number of occasions. So I feel privileged to have been grounded in many, many different perspectives. And in 1973, when I was asked to begin to teach some of the teachings that I was learning, I began using a particular map that you see here. This is a map, which I'll explain in a moment, that I think of as a comprehensive map of meditation that embodies all the different teachings I've studied. You can see on the left-hand side are the Oxfording pictures that I've integrated into it from my Zen background, but also in my teachings with Mahayana Buddhism, but also Dzogchen, Mahamudra, and the teachings of my Taoist teacher. So many things have been integrated into this map. And I found and discovered this map ultimately in the Shiva Sutras, in the teachings of Kashmir non-dualism. And it's really been a guiding map for me in everything I do. And I'll be walking you basically through this map experientially tonight. But along the way, in 2004, when I was approached by the United States military, who became interested in the program I had developed and wanted to do research with it, they said, you know, we're meditation, we're military, we're Army, we're Navy, we're Marines. We don't do yoga, we don't do meditation. So can you call it something else besides Yoga Nidra or meditation? And I came up with the name integrative restoration, which I'll talk about in a moment. And it was wonderful because they said, okay, we can do that. That sounds interesting. So, integrative restoration, as I've assembled it over the years, is really a secular protocol. It's a modern adaptation of these ancient teachings of meditation that I think fosters and brings forward and restores us to a sense of indestructible resilience and well being. So, for our discussion, then, defining some terms, yoga for me means our embodying as our living in life an innate sense of unchanging wholeness and well being that we carry with us from moment to moment, that also has these associated qualities like harmony, peace, equanimity, ease, and the host of other attendants like kindness, compassion, and love. So, yoga to me is someone who is embodying all of these qualities. And then the word nidra means sleep in Sanskrit, but it represents a changing state of consciousness. Changing meaning we could be in good health or ill health. We could be in comfort or discomfort. We could be in happiness or sadness or grief. These are the different changing states of our consciousness. And Yoga Nidra is a practice that helps us embody this deep core sense of indestructible well being that we can carry with us to meet every changing state of consciousness that we're going to experience as we go through life. It's really what I think of a deceptively simple grouping of practices. Each one can be done individually or they can all be chained together, as you'll see in a bit. And I named it integrative restoration because I think it integrates our psychology. As a psychologist, I really wanted to see how a program like this could really help us individuate and become an actualized human being in good terms with our emotions, our thoughts, the ability to heal through traumas, depressions, experiences that we've had growing up, and really help us become an integrated whole human being. And I think of it as restorative because, as I hope you'll experience tonight, it helps us recontact this deep, indestructible core that is our essence and helps us weave it into our daily life and the ground then from which we meet all of the experiences we have on a day-to-day basis. So I think of the practice as 10 tools for life. For me, it's the owner's manual I never got as a child. I don't know about you, but I had to find my way through and assemble these tools a bit by bit by bit. And now I love the ability to offer them on a regular basis. So to date, my institute, we've trained about 6,000 teachers worldwide. We're in 25 countries. Here in the United States, we're serving about 75 to 80 VA sites with our teachings, as well as in hospitals, clinics. I'm coming into a wonderful clinic, for instance, in Las Vegas, Cure for the Kids, where we're doing research with my protocol with the administration staff, the doctors, the nurses who are working with the children, helping them work with the cancer under their treatment programs. And then later on, we'll be working with the families and the children themselves. So I think of the practice then as it's teaching us how to surf all the different waves we're going to find ourselves encountering as we go through life. I happen to like this picture because I used to surf the big 20 and 30 and 40-foot waves. So it's dear to my heart because I always thought when we learn tools like this, we're starting with the little waves, like I did when I first started to surf 6-inch and 1-foot waves, and then so gradually work our way up so we can really be able to encounter the most extreme of experiences and yet find our way through them with a sense of equanimity and well-being. So as I said, this is based on an ancient map of meditation. This is not something I invented. I've taken this from the teachings of Kashmir Shaivism, and I've also translated it into an English map, which you can see here. And this map comprises 3 different modes of teaching. The bottom 1 through 25 represent the entire breadth of the teachings of Sankhya and Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, which is helping us grow through and become awake to our essential nature. If you take 1 through 25 plus 31, this represents, we might say, the breadth and depth of the teachings of Advaita Vedanta. And if we take the entire map, it represents the teachings of non-dual Shaivism, where the word Shiva here represents 2 words in Sanskrit, Shi, S-I, which means one who is awake, and the word Va, Va, means to their most essential or true nature. So the teachings of Kashmir Shaivism are about awakening into our most essential nature. While I'm drawing this map, it also represents for me the teachings of Taoism, the teachings of mystical Judaism and Christianity, but also because I've studied into the teachings of Muhammad, the teachings behind that religion and other religions. I feel like there's a thread that this map weaves through in its entirety that can represent all the different teachings we may come, no matter the perspective. Just as an aside, I've done to date about 45 research studies. We've got 4 more going on right now. Everything from post-traumatic stress disorder, which is what I was working with the VA back in 2004, stress, chronic pain and acute pain, traumatic brain injury, resilience in couples, sleep issues, compassion fatigue, working with elders, wellness, quality of life, cancer, things like multiple sclerosis, across a number of settings in the United States, but also in Great Britain, Australia, and Canada as well. And if you're interested, you can go to my website later on where we list many of these research studies. The lovely thing that we found is the needle in each of our research studies has always moved in the direction we'd like. Decreases in things like depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, chronic pain, insomnia, etc., and increases in basically affect and cognitive self-regulation, restful sleep, resiliency, compassion, a sense of, interestingly, being in control in situations where it feels like you're out of control. So it helps us find a locus of control within ourselves where we can meet the situation we find ourselves in. And we're continuing to do research on a continuing basis. My first research study was really at Walter Reed Army Medical Center with a number of veterans and active duty who had come back with severe PTSD. At the beginning of the study, they were all up at the very top of the scale of PTSD. And at the end of the study, they were all below without PTSD markers, except for one person who was hovering right at the baseline. And it was so successful, they integrated the program right into their health deployment clinical center, where today you can still have access to my program if you're going through your healing regimens at Walter Reed. Subsequently, the U.S. Surgeon General categorized iRest as a form of pain management and listed it as a tier 1. And then the Defense Centers of Excellence have recommended iRest as an approach for working with PTSD to help ameliorate the symptoms as we continue to operate in many VA centers across the United States, as well as in Hawaii and Germany. So let's look at the program itself, because really this is the meat that I would like to reveal to you, or if you're a vegetarian, more like I am, the tofu of the program. Maya is a Sanskrit word that means sheaths of identification, and iRest and Yoga Nidra in general are addressing 5 basic sheaths, and I've added a 6th sheath to this model, as I'll talk about in a moment. And each sheath, like the Annamaya, Anna in Sanskrit means food. So this is the food sheath or the physical body because it's comprised of the food we eat. And these are sheaths that we're inquiring into that lead to a spontaneous disidentification so that we can understand ourselves as more than just the body, senses, and mind, as I hope you'll experience in a little while. We navigate each sheath in turn, and as I was saying a little while ago, each sheath can be its own practice, or we can chain a couple of them together, or we can put the whole 10 steps into a particular program. So we have the Annamaya, the Pranamaya, prana meaning energy. This is the sheath of breath and energy, which we'll be inquiring into. The Manomaya, mana is the mind, and in this particular instance with Yoga Nidra, it's having to do with the quality of feelings and emotions we're working with in our daily life. I'm using the word feeling to denote things like warmth and coolness, heaviness and lightness, comfort and discomfort, um, deep and surface, whereas emotions, the whole gamut of emotions from happiness to sadness and grief, irritability, depression, anger, hatred, all the different emotions we might experience as a human being, learning how to navigate them in such a way that we're really learning how to surf our emotions so we can be an integrated human being, able to utilize our emotions but not get held hostage by them. The Vijnana Maya is the sheath of cognition. We're talking about thoughts, beliefs, images, and memories. So part of the process of Yoga Nidra is learning how to integrate all of our memories, all of the images we may be carrying from our past or present circumstances, the different beliefs that we may have fallen into. These tend to be more negative core beliefs like I'm unlovable or something's wrong with me. Many people we know who've experienced PTSD feel they're broken and that they may never be able to get back to where they were before the incident that gave them the PTSD. So they carry with them a feeling of something's wrong with me, I'm broken, I'll never be whole again. So we're learning how to heal these different beliefs that people get caught in. The Anandamaya is the sheath of joy. How many people, I don't know how you've met them, but I have people who have a difficult time experiencing joy because of the family experiences, the cultural experiences, or personal experiences they've had in their life. And very rarely do people understand what bliss is. So this is a sheath where we're really helping bring joy out as an innate quality in the body and our ability to experience it on a regular basis because we know joy is good medicine, as I'll talk about in a bit. And then I've added a 6th sheet. The first 5 sheets, Anapranamana, Vijnanamaya, and Anandamaya, these are the traditional sheaths we find represented in the annals of spirituality. If you go into the Yoga Sutras or the Upanishads or into other teachings in Taoism or others, these 5 sheaths are usually represented in one way or another. But what I found is along the way, while we were learning how to surf each of these sheaths and in a way disidentify them and go beyond them to a deeper sense of who we are, a particular thought kept intruding. This is the I thought, the ego I thought. And what I came to see is it exists at ever subtler levels. First, we meet it at a very gross level, then at a subtler level, then at a very subtle kind of cognitive, then precognitive, and one that I would say is even deeper than precognitive. And so I added the Asmita Maya as a way of examining this particular I thought, how it tends to usurp and take ownership of whatever is arising and creates, in a way, we might say, a disturbance in the field when it's not properly understood. So the Asmita Maya is really examining the particular I thought and the whole field of awareness, pure awareness, and taking us, we would say, beyond even pure awareness into a deep, non cognitive experience. So, those are the five sheets and my sixth sheet. And then there is what we call sahaj, which means our natural state. So, as a result of going through a process of Yoga Nidra, we're able to embody a sense of core well being and take it with us and integrate it into our daily life. But I also think of Sahaj and this process of integration as our ability to integrate these different tools, which I'll be showcasing in a minute, into our daily life so that we can use them on a spontaneous way all through our daily life when we're working with a difficult, challenging emotion, a particular thought we may be experiencing or belief falling prey to, or just meeting the different stresses in our body, learning how to utilize these tools to help de-stress the body on an ongoing basis. Two basic principles. One of the principles is what I call welcoming. There different principles that we find in the Upanishads and from Advaita Vedanta. I love three of them. They're called Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. Shravana means when an emotion comes, we hear it. And that's tantamount to somebody knocking on your door in your home, and you hear the knock. So when we're meditating or going through life, we will hear a particular messenger like a thought, a sensation, an emotion, a feeling that's knocking on our door for attention. The second word, manana, means that we get up off our couch and we go to the door and we open the door to the messenger that is arriving to help us understand something or to engage us in some action that's going to help us navigate our life. So again, Shravana means that act of listening, and Manana means not just listening, but now we're hearing it and we're beginning to respond, to open the door and listen to it. And the third, Nididhyasana, means contemplative inquiry, where we're not just meeting the messenger at the door, but we're saying, what brings you here? Is there something you're trying to get my attention so that I can better understand? Some action you're asking me to take? So the word welcoming comprises these three words: listening, hearing and responding, and deeply contemplatively inquiring into the messenger that is arriving. So for me, and in these teachings, every bodily sensation, every feeling or emotion, every thought, belief, or cognition, image, memory, every perception is a messenger that is helping us gallop on the way as we come to understand them as messengers. So Yoga Nidra isn't designed in a way using the metaphor to shoot the messenger or try to get rid of the messenger. It's actually to welcome in everything and learn how to respond in a way that really helps us navigate life with a sense of well-being and equanimity. So we're learning how to proactively meet, greet, be with, and respond to all that life is bringing to our table through these practices. So it's a wonderfully sophisticated, we might say, psychology of how to work with all of our psychological as well as our physiology, our aches, our pains, our diseases. That's why with Yoga Nidra, we've been so successful coming in to help people with their cancer treatment, helping people meet diagnoses such as Parkinson's or multiple sclerosis, um, helping them with chronic or acute pain, but also with things like chronic depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety disorders, and a host of others. The second basic principle, it's the practice is designed to heal our sense of separation. I love this picture of Buddha sitting in total equanimity, surrounded by all the sensory desires, all the onslaughts that we encounter on a daily basis. And here he is sitting with true equanimity, saying, in a manner of speaking, you're all welcome to be here. So he's not trying to get rid of anything. He's saying, I know how to be with you, and you know that I know how to be with you, and you know that you can no longer can disturb my equanimity. So healing separation is helping us find that equanimity that cannot be disturbed by any encounter we may have with the body, mind, or the world around us. But it's also healing our sense of being separate from all human beings. We're learning to share in common with everyone an underlying essence where we can respect the differences we're meeting and encountering another or encountering a tree or an animal, but we're feeling the underlying essence which we all share in common that gives us a sense of an underlying unicity. We're doing that not just with fellow human beings, but with nature all around us, so that we're really finding our place in the cosmos, where we're discovering a tremendous underlying sense of harmony and well-being moment to moment. There is a beautiful word in Sanskrit, RTA, 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 which is actually the root of the word dharma, which many of us have heard. Dharma meaning the work we do in the world that is, in a way, in harmony with our life and with the world around us, and gives us a sense of value, meaning, and purpose as we go about our life. Rta, the root word of dharma, means to be acting in such a way we are in harmony with the totality of the universe. Rta, to be acting and living in such a manner that we feel in harmony both within ourselves and with the entire universe and cosmos around us. So this is what I mean when I talk about healing separation. There's a beautiful sutra, some of you may know from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. It says, whenever we begin to fall into a moment of separation, and that could be that we're separating from an emotion, we're wanting life to be other than it is, so we're trying to change life rather than meet it as it is on its own terms, or when we feel separate from others or the world around us, or somehow we come into a sense of isolation or alienation within. So it's saying whenever we begin to feel separate, we're going to feel that something's amiss. And if we don't catch it, we'll begin to feel a certain stress. And if we don't catch it, particular distress in our body. And if we don't catch it, it's going to turn into anxiety. And if we don't meet it, it'll turn into fear and so on. This is a beautiful sutra that if you think about it, what it's saying in simple terms is, whenever you feel a sense of restlessness, a sense of doubt, a sense of struggle, a sense of something's not right in my life, or whenever you're starting to feel fear, anxiety, distress, or stress, inquire, where am I separating? Try to see where in your life have you started to separate in some way from what life is bringing to your table as an emotion, as a thought, as an experience, or some other perception. I have found this incredibly useful in its simplicity. Whenever I start to feel something's off in my life, I stop and I simply inquire, where am I separating? And I try to trace the source of the distress or the something is amiss back to its source. And when I discover the place where I might be separating, which is usually wishing life were other than it is in this moment, and heal that and meet life just as it is, the messenger of distress disappears. It's served its purpose. I also am aware, as probably you are, that when something feels amiss in us, this this I thought can come in and take ownership. So the body then is feeling something's amiss, but the ego comes in and says, there's something amiss with me. There's something wrong. There may be something wrong with me, which creates a secondary problem. If we can just keep it as something's amiss and don't go in the secondary, something's amiss with me, then we can keep it at that very simple level of where is the feeling of separation? Can that be healed? And then the feeling of separation has served its purpose and dissolves. So, from the perspective of Yoga Nidra, as I'm introducing it, all feelings, emotions, thoughts, and sensations are simply messengers trying to help us basically find out where we're separating and meet life on its terms. I do know that our family, our culture, our personal experiences can often diminish our ability to understand where we're separating from our basic essential wholeness and can help us, in a way, lose touch with our innate ground of non separateness or wholeness, as I'm suggesting here. The challenging news is then we can lose touch, and many people have, but the good news is, from my perspective, we're hardwired for experiencing our essential wholeness. We just need to know how to get back in touch with it. And isn't this what all the teachings from Judo Christian teachings to the teachings of Mohammed to the teachings of Taoism, Buddhism, yoga, they're all designed to help us heal this sense of separation and come into right relationship with ourselves and the world around us. So this is what I think of as the process that we're engaging in Yoga Nidra. So I'm going to take you through these 10 stages now experientially, one at a time. But look at them for a moment before we go into them. We're going to start by looking at an intention. I think of every journey we take, we need to set an intention. Every journey starts with an intention. And I think of every meditation session starts with an intention. Because if we don't set our intentions clearly, we will find ourselves going off course at some point in our lives. So intentions are like inner vows that help us keep on course, help us feel when we're starting to stray, and bring us back on course. The heartfelt desire, I call it, or heartfelt mission, just as a kind of a background here, I often ask people to imagine, and you might imagine it right now as I'm saying it. Imagine you're on your deathbed, surrounded by your most intimate friends, and you're telling them how you lived your life that gave you a sense of value, meaning, and purpose. And they're all telling you how they saw you living your life, and it's a congruent message. What they're saying and what you're saying are one and the same. I would like to feel I'm on my deathbed saying that, and I'm surrounded by my most cherished friends, and they're all saying that that's how they saw me living my life in my interactions from moment to moment. So when I think of my deepest heartfelt desire, that's the tone from which I think about it. The inner resource, that is a place where we want to ultimately find within ourselves of unbreakable, indestructible, and always present, unchanging well-being. And I hope to introduce you to a taste of that tonight. These three taken together are called our sankalpa. San meaning born from the heart, and kalpa meaning something that unfolds over time. So a sankalpa is something that comes from life itself, announces itself in your heart, and the heart hands it over to your thinking mind that can talk about it. But these three, our intentions, our heartfelt desire or mission, and our inner resource, these are really coming from life itself. They're not intellectual, they're full on embodiments that we want to bring forward in our experience. And we'll enter into each one of these in turn in a moment. Then we're going to do some body sensing because all of our information comes to us through our body. When we have a perception, it has a sensorial component. When we feel an emotion, a thought, a memory, it all comes in some way through the body. So we want access to that information. So body and breath sensing, which we'll do a little bit tonight, these are designed to help us come to a very subtle level of being able to discriminate information that is arriving to us and be able to understand what it is and our right relationship and right actions to what we're discovering. Then we're going to be looking at integrating opposites of both feelings, emotions, and cognitions, thoughts, beliefs, images, and memories. Working with opposites is a very powerful experience. Everything arrives always paired with its opposite. But when we only encounter one half of a pair of opposites, we can get hung up, so to speak, on the horns of a dilemma. Years ago at a Jungian retreat that I was at, I was given this metaphor of a bull with two horns, and we can get hung up on one pair of an opposite. That could be a negative opposite, like there's something wrong with me, or I'm broken, or I'm unlovable. And we're turning that over and over and taking that to be our reality. Or we can get hung up on the opposite, where we're affirming I'm loving and kind, but that affirmation may not have the strength to really bring it into place, as I found in the 70s when I was doing a lot of affirmations and working with people with affirmations. But I saw by working with opposites, say, and I'm going to encounter this with you in a little while. So you might take a moment as I'm speaking right now to think of what's a feeling or an emotion that at times troubles you. It could be a feeling like pain, chronic or acute, or discomfort, or an emotion like anger, irritableness, depression, sadness, grief. You're grieving someone. So just note that because I'll be inquiring into something like that with you in a little bit. But then, if that had an opposite, or if it were no longer true, what would be here instead? And we're going to inquire, where do we encounter these in our body at a very somatic level? Because Yoga Nidra is a very somatic experiencing approach. But we're going to then go back and forth between opposites, and the power of them lies that When we say, I'm loving and kind, it's going to kick up into consciousness all the places where we're not loving and kind. So then we're going to come over and we're going to meet that in the body. What does it feel like when we're not being loving and kind? Which interestingly is going to unearth where we are loving and kind. And as we unearth each more and more into the fullness of consciousness, and then we meet both at the same time. So think of those two horns of the bull. By holding opposites at the same time, we may go through the horns of the dilemma we're encountering and come to a whole new insight that we otherwise wouldn't have encountered. Do keep in mind, we cannot hold opposites at the same time with the thinking mind. For an example, right now, have a sensation of coolness in your environment, on your skin, somewhere on your body, and see if you can find its opposite, a feeling of warmth, maybe even hot. You can go back and forth between feeling coolness and then feeling hot, but to feel them both at the same time, you have to very gently let go of the concepts, coolness and warmth or hot, and slowly feel into them, which is taking us out of our thinking mind, out of our default network of the I, me, mine that keeps us in recursive negative thinking or recursive thinking loops. And it places us squarely in the present centered or defocusing network where we might have little bursts of gamma that are associated with insight and come to a new understanding we would neither have had if we had been contemplating either of the opposites alone. Doing this with feelings, emotions, and cognitions, memories, images, thoughts, and beliefs. We have a powerful network of tools here to help us resolve any difficulty, any trauma, any past experience, and go beyond them into a whole new learning. Just as an aside, you know, when we have an experience that's overwhelming and we can't process it all at once, the body engages, doesn't it, in the natural defense of dissociation. Dissociation is a natural, inbred, or inborn defense that helps us navigate through an overwhelming situation, survive through it, so that afterwards we can meet the material that we weren't able to meet at the time it was coming because it was too much, too overwhelming to our system. And by really meeting it and being with it and responding to it, there's a natural disidentification from it, a resolution, and it dissolves in our consciousness and may resolve completely. So Yoga Nidra is really a process of disidentification where we're meeting the emerging material in the content of consciousness in such a way that it dissolves and we go beyond it into a deeper recognition of who we are. When we do this, joy often comes very spontaneously. So we have this movement in Yoga Nidra of working with joy, deep core feelings of well-being, happiness, and pleasure, and even bliss, and really letting the body radiate with qualities like joy and bliss, which are good medicine. I like to think of joy as vitamin J. It's that joy that is really good medicine because we know it helps stimulate the immune system. It helps overcome chronic pain at times. It's just a wonderful source of healing in the body. The ninth movement of Yoga Nidra is now to meet the subtlest of movements of the I thought that are no longer distracting us, that allow us to leave the conceptual mind behind, the thinking mind, the ego I thought, and come into moments of non-conceptual, pure awareness. And then we leave even that behind, where we may discover what I call this, that patheth all understanding, and yet is undeniable, yet recognizable, we might say. Where we might even have moments in the annals a la Buddhism or in yoga of cessation, where for all intents and purposes, it's like when we're in deep sleep, all sense of self, world, and other, all sense of me and mine and I completely dissolve. And we are in a non-conceptual moment where we've passed beyond gati gati paragati, as it is said, beyond gone have we. In that moment, there is nobody here saying, I have gone beyond. But there's a moment where consciousness reassembles enough so that we can feel the perfume, I like to say, of where we just were, where we're not. And that perfume begins to saturate our life in such a way that we lose all fear of death, all anxieties, all troubles begin to melt away as we spend more and more time in these spontaneous moments of cessation and deep meditation that inform our life and then ultimately help us navigate all the difficulties we're inevitably going to encounter, including that last wondrous journey into death. So, Yoga Nidra has often been called preparation for dying because while we're alive, we're meeting all the ways that we can meet all the states of consciousness that we are ultimately going to meet during the dying process. Emotions, thoughts, beliefs, perceptions, the loss of our sight, the loss of our hearing, the loss of our smelling and tasting. And as each one goes away, if we can really meet it truly, there'll be a spontaneously disidentification, meeting the next great adventure. So with that, I'm going to take a moment. I'm going to stop my share. So with that, I'd love you to find a comfortable position for meditation. It could be sitting, chair, on the floor, lying down in a comfortable position on your bed or on the sofa or on the floor. If it's possible, if you're lying down, I highly recommend something underneath your knees to support your lower back. And if possible, to place your body in a slanted position. If you have one of those beds that rises up behind you, that would be great. Because when we're meditating in a lying position, which mimics sleep, we would like our heart to be higher than our pelvis and our chin to be higher than our heart. And we would like our chin to be slightly dropping towards our chest. You know, when people are in meditation and their head goes up, what's happening is they're going into thinking. So we keep bringing the chin down and elongating the back of the neck, which can help keep us out of the thinking mind, more into the experience of our somatic experience. But also feel free to stand up or even walk around if it feels right. So as you're beginning to settle, just notice any tensions you might be carrying with you into this moment. So we begin Yoga Nidra with just a brief scan. For instance, in the hinges of your jaw, sensations through the mouth, deep inside the ears. There might be some leftover tension from hearing all day long. All around and behind the eyes from gazing and looking all day long. So might you just feel a gentle softening of the ears, softening all around the eyes and forehead. Noticing perhaps the sensations of the shoulders and arms as they settle more into their resting positions. The gentle expansion and release of the belly as breath comes in and goes out. Sensations through the entire torso, pelvis, hips, legs, and feet. And then take a moment, if you would, sensing the entire body globally, from head to toe, front and back, left and right side, sensations deep and on the surface of the body. Where all these different sensations begin to join together as a global field of sensation, where you might begin to feel the gentle pulse or throb of the very life force that's animating every atom, molecule, cell, and tissue throughout the body. Just take a moment, see if you can feel anywhere in the body or the whole body this gentle throbbing, pulsing, just sensation. Then take a moment and welcome in an intention for this particular practice. It may be just to navigate and come to a better understanding of the 10 steps of iRest, Yoga Nidra. And if you were doing this on your own, it also might be an intention to work with a particular emotion you may be struggling with in your life at times, or a particular circumstance that you've been having difficulty with, a particular emotion, particular belief. It could be just to feel and embody a deep core sense of unchangeable well-being, or to abide knowingly as pure awareness. But just see what's an intention that feels right for this particular practice. Or letting it bubble up from within us through our heart, you might say, that may announce itself in words in our thinking mind. Whatever your intention, see if you can sense it with the whole body embodying it. So an intention I often have is to stay present, awake, no matter whether the body is in deep sleep or in wakefulness. I remain awake and present for what's present. Whatever your intention, feel like you're doing it right now. It's not for the future. So put it in the present tense as something that you're doing in this very moment. So we take it out of may I, or I hope to, or I want, and we put it in I am. And even as you're continuing to contemplate this, you might begin to also contemplate what is your deepest heartfelt desire, how you wish to be living your life that gives you a sense of value, meaning, and purpose. It gives you a sense of living in harmony with yourself and, we might say, the totality of the universe. Like your intention, put it in the present tense in some kind of concise statement that you're stating with your entire body. So it's not an affirmation. State it as if it's already so. If your deepest heartfelt desire is to be living as love in action, as a kind, compassionate, loving human being, setting healthy boundaries, but being loving and kind in everything you do, then state that that's what you're doing. Notice if it brings into consciousness any opposites, register them. We can work with them in a little bit when we come to emotions, feelings, and thoughts, cognition. But for now, what is your deepest heartfelt desire? What's the mission that you feel life is embodying through you this lifetime? If you were free of suffering, if you were free of seeking, how would you be and how would you be living your life if you had realized the deepest truth? And know that we can keep mining these to the surface of our consciousness, something you may wish to do more and more in the future in your own meditation practice or contemplative practice. But as much as you can, set it aside for a moment. And I'd like you to contemplate when you feel a sense of being grounded, secure, you have a deep core feeling of well-being, could be a sense of deep equanimity or peace. Where and how in your body do these qualities manifest? Where and how do you experience them in your body? Can you invite them in this moment? Where we're slowly shifting from thinking to sensing, welcoming in any qualities of feeling secure, anchored, rooted in well-being, ease. There could be associated qualities like kindness, compassion, love. Just noticing where and how you experience these in your body. Again, shifting more and more from thinking to sensing. When you feel, say, a quality of well-being, let go of the word, the concept, and really feel how you experience it in actuality in the body. And then, as some of you have done with me before, this may be new to some of you, I'd like you to take a moment, let go of where you've been, let go of where you may wanting to go later on or in a few moments, but just come into this very moment, into the simple feeling of being. And I want to see if we can mine to the surface the deep core inner resource through 5 basic inquiry. When you're simply being, you're sensing the body, and you let go of the concept body and skin. You're just a field of sensation and beingness. Notice, where is your innermost center and your outermost border, boundary, periphery? Can you sense in some way, as you really come into the felt sense of being and your sensorial or viscous experience of being, notice how the felt sense of being acts on your entire body and mind as you come more and more into actually experiencing it without thinking, without the thinking mind. The second inquiry is, as you're being more and more, just sensing, what's happening to your thinking mind? What's happening to your sense of time? Can you experience how the more you come into the sensing function, the thinking mind may even periodically dissolve, and we step out of time into something about us that feels outside of time, spacious and open. The third inquiry is very important. As being, as this essence, this presence that you are, as being, has being itself ever been hurt, harmed, or injured? Does it need, lack, or want for anything? Or can you sense how being itself, while the body and the mind have wants and needs and feelings of lack or need of healing, how being itself is outside of lack, need, want, desire, hurt, harm, injury, or need of healing? And you feel something about you which we might call your basic goodness, your basic okayness, something that feels deeply harmonious and perfect just as it is. just as you are as this felt sense of being. The fourth inquiry on this inner resource, can you experience how, as being, it deepens your connection to yourself, the universe around you? It may even begin to melt away any feelings of separation, isolation, separateness, where we may feel a deeper sense of our place in the cosmos. And then finally, notice how being isn't something you're doing, it is its own natural arising, not something we're doing, although there may be the sense of remembering. Now, to the capacity you can, take a few moments and weave in the felt sense of being and these different qualities about it, how something about you is spacious and open, outside of time and the thinking mind, outside of lack, need, hurt, harm, or injury. Something that more and more deeply connects you to both yourself and a sense of harmony with everything around. It isn't something you're doing, it's something that's innate to you as a human being. And as you're contemplating this sense of being and well being, notice the different qualities it might also engender in the body, like these qualities of peace or equanimity or a deep feeling about something about yourself that can't be hurt or injured. So it can bring a deep sense of safety or security within. So we're weaving all of these together as our inner resource, the ground then from which we can meet each moment that is to come. So feel this basic wholeness about yourself. So we're not doing Yoga Nidra to become whole, but from our innate feeling of wholeness. And as you continue to nourish this feeling, might you weave it into the body as we do a little bit of body and breath sensing now? So let the sound of my voice perhaps become your own inner voice as we travel through the body, noticing different sensations. But our intention isn't to try to change, fix, or alter what's present. It's simply to be with what's arising, meeting it and greeting it, and welcoming it as a messenger that might be helping show the way for how we respond to life in each moment. So bring attention, if you would, to the hinges of your jaw again and welcome the sensations of your mouth, hinges of the jaw, teeth, gums, tongue, interior walls of the mouth. From deep inside the mouth, come into the inner corridors of the ears. tracing sensation all the way from deep inside the mouth, through the inner hallways of the ears, out to the outer architecture of each ear. The sensations of the cheeks, skin of the face, and the touch of air inside the corridors of the nostrils and along the walls, the inside walls of the throat. Sensations all around and deep behind each eye. And the sensation of the temples, forehead, scalp of the head, back of the head and neck, back of the shoulders. And welcome the sensation of both arms, both hands. First, welcome the sensation of one shoulder, arm, and hand, and then come over to the opposite arm, shoulder, arm, and hand. At some moment, welcoming both arms at the same time, letting go of the concept arm, concept hand. So we're just sensing a field of sensation. And let attention gently slide into the upper chest and upper back, welcoming sensations and the gentle expansion and release with each breath. Mid chest, mid back sensations. Belly, lower back, and the sensation of the entire torso, front, back, sides, sensations deep and surface. And welcome sensations throughout the pelvis, sacrum, buttocks, and hips through this entire pelvic basin. And notice somewhere you may feel sensations, some places no sensations at all. Whatever you're experiencing is perfect just as it is. Welcoming sensations through the thighs, knees, forelegs and calves, ankles, feet, and toes. As it feels right, sense the entire front of the body, the entire front of the face, torso, arms, pelvis, legs, and feet. The entire front of the body is sensation without going into thinking or analyzing, just sensation. Very gently let attention slide into the back of the body and welcome sensation from the back of the head and neck, shoulders, arms, torso, buttocks, back of the legs, soles of the feet. The entire back of the body is sensation. Then welcome the entire body as sensations, sensations deep and surface, from head to toe to fingertip, front, back, inside and out. Letting go of the concept, body and skin, just encountering your firsthand experiencing. The body is just experienced as sensation. If it feels right, weaving in this inner resource of being and well-being and any qualities of peace or ease or equanimity. Perhaps a feeling of being grounded and rooted in a sense of feeling secure. And then try an experiment. At the top of an inhalation, while momentarily suspending the breath, bring all of the sensation and attention into the left side of the body, exhaling, exploring, and welcoming sensation throughout the entire left side of the body. Inhaling, continuing to explore. When you come to the completion of the next inhale, suspending the breath momentarily, bring attention over to the opposite side, the right side of the body. So we're going to be exhaling and inhaling, feeling into opposite sides of the body. First one side, exhaling, inhaling, then the opposite side of the body, exhaling, inhaling at your own breathing rhythm. Letting go of thinking. The top of each inhale, give time for sensation to permeate across the midline, saturating the opposite side, then moving with the exhalation, inhalation, exploring and welcoming the body as sensation. Letting go into perhaps an ever deepening feeling of letting go with each exhalation, staying with that deep letting go during inhalation. When it feels right at the top of an inhalation, let left and right come in one into the other, exhaling, welcoming the entire body of sensation, inhaling, exhaling, the whole body as a field of sensation, integrating your inner resource of being and well-being, feeling anchored in a deep core sense of feeling secure, grounded, and at ease. And then notice all that's now present, all the different feeling tones, sensations that are coming and going, and how you are aware of all these movements of sensation. What does the felt sense of awareness feel like? Sensations are coming and going, yet awareness is always present. So take a moment and feel into awareness itself, the vast, open, unchanging, unqualified, spacious clarity of awareness itself. And notice the effect of all that you've done so far on the body and mind, of doing the breath sensing, the body sensing, the welcoming in the inner resource of being and well-being. Welcoming in ourself as the quality of spacious, open awareness in which all these sensations are coming and going. So just register for a moment these different movements of the practice so far, setting your intention, which may continue to bubble up if it's an intention to stay present. When the mind begins to wander onto a daydream, that intention may bubble up as it does within me and says, is this really what wants to be happening in this moment? And we come back to being present with what is. Or your heartfelt desire. You were living from and embodying your heartfelt desire in this very moment. What that would feel like in your body and your mind. And if you were embodying your inner resource of unchanging being and well-being, just notice how this all impacts the body and mind. And what happens when you're simply doing body sensing, not to relax the body, not to change the body, but just to feel the body in its inherent quality of sensation and the natural movement of the breath. Perhaps this is enough for a practice of Yoga Nidra. You might wish to just stay with this sometime. But let's continue on with the next two phases that occur quite naturally because as you're sensing the body and breathing, it's liberating the diaphragm and inviting feelings and emotions more into conscious awareness. So feel into the body. Are there any different feelings or emotions that are calling attention? Or it may be an intention to welcome in an emotion or a feeling you sometimes struggle with. If so, welcome it in this moment. Could be a feeling like comfort or discomfort, or a pain. Could be a particular emotion, sadness, happiness, anger, but welcome whatever is most calling attention. And if you would, or bring in some emotion as an experiment in this moment. And just notice where and how you experience it in the body. Invite it in as if it's your full embodied experience in this moment. Notice any memories, thoughts, beliefs that come in with it. You also might invite in a particular belief that sometimes you find yourself agreeing with, getting caught in when you're by yourself, when you're with another, or when you're in a group. There's some belief, thought that you get caught in that gives a sense of contraction somewhere in your body. If so, might you bring it in and just feel where and how you experience it in the body when you take it to be your truth? With the emotion or feeling, with the thought or belief, if it were no longer true, what might be here? Or if it had an opposite, what might its opposite be? And if you were taking that to be the truth of this moment, where and how would you experience it in your body? Can you invite such an emotional or feeling tone in, or such a thought, and embody it and just notice how would it feel if this were what you were living out of instead of its original form as this negative or challenging belief, emotion, or feeling. And as best you can, I understand you may wish to linger longer in your own meditation, but just for teaching tonight, go back and forth between these opposites, first embodying one, and you might just slightly move your body to feel like you're taking the shape and the form of this particular feeling, emotion, and thought or belief, lingering there a little bit. And then when it feels right, shift the body just slightly and take on the opposite feeling, emotion, or belief as if that's your full truth in this moment. And several times, taking one, lingering, then taking the shape and the form of the opposite, lingering, just going back several times between these two opposites. Taking your time, but when it does feel right, and when it feels right, feel into both at the same time. First one, then the other, knowing you can't ultimately do this with your thinking mind. You have to feel your way into something new, some new way or some new shape that the body finds its way into, which may usher in an insight, an understanding, or some action that would be helpful to take in your life as you contemplate opposite. And if it's helpful, even as you're doing this, weave in your inner resource of being and well being, ground and security. And stay with this. Perhaps this is what you want, most wish to just stay with, contemplating opposites back and forth, and then both at the same time as these two steps of Yoga Nidra, staying with what's most important for you in this moment. And if it feels right, but if it feels right, might you welcome in, even in the midst of what you're doing, a quality of joy. When you feel a sense of joy, and perhaps you may remember a touching moment in your life, someone you were with, an animal you were with, in nature. It's something that really brought a sense of delight, wonder, joy, amazement, and the accompanying sensations of pleasure or happiness or the feeling of bliss. Like a deep inner smile that's permeating and filling out the entire body and radiating in all directions, inwardly and outwardly. So you're more and more steeping in the feeling of joy and all the sensations that it ushers in with it. We continue to let go of the thinking mind and just the pure sensory embodied experiencing of joy, bliss, happiness. Perhaps weaving this into your inner resource of being and well being. And as a step of iRest, Yoga Nidra, this might be something you just want to linger with and nourish and keep inviting in. And if it feels right, in the midst of all that you're now experiencing, notice everything that's now present in your conscious awareness. Thoughts and feelings, perhaps the experience of joy and well-being, the different perceptions that are calling attention to them. Notice all the comings and goings. And notice how it's all appearing, including the felt sense of being in awareness. Or you might notice this particular I thought that might have been accompanying you all the way through the journey so far. Every once in announcing, I'm feeling this or I'm thinking this. And you see how the I thought is an addition to each experience you're having. It comes in late, so to speak, as an addition. Happens if you set the I thought aside. We're not trying to get rid of it. You're simply noticing that it's just a thought. But when you're just sensing, notice how the I thought may come in and start to intrude and claim ownership of what is being experienced. Any movement of expectation, anticipation, seeking. You sense how they're just additions to this moment. If you set them aside and you just stay with your first hand experiencing, what does awareness feel like? This very open, clear spaciousness of awareness. Where we're momentarily setting aside the content of consciousness and feeling ourselves as this vast open field of awareness in which the content is coming and going. And more setting aside the thinking mind. So we're coming into more and more of a precognitive way of being, non conceptual, pure awareness. Even letting go of that label into the something else here, something that is ultimately indescribable and yet undeniable. Where we might want to just stay here, nourishing this indescribable essence that we ultimately are as we let go of body, mind, senses, and come into this indescribable and yet undeniable essence. But for the sake of our journey tonight in this workshop oriented presentation. Take a moment now and imagine going about your day, tonight, tomorrow, the next day, weaving in these different tools of iRest when the body's feeling a bit contracted or tight, trying to notice where might there be a moment of separation that's happening. Is there a particular emotion or thought that I need to welcome in and be with? Perhaps contemplate its opposite. Or just a moment of body sensing and breathing where I can feel the body as spacious, openness, the inner resource of being and well being that can accompany you in every moment, helping you navigate every circumstance you encounter. Or at night, falling asleep in this quality of being and well being, even finding it permeating your dream life and waking up in the morning and carrying it with you into your daily life. So this is a bit of the experience of Yoga Nidra in a nutshell. Just take a moment with whatever you're experiencing and one more moment of nourishing that inner resource of being and well-being. This indescribable essence that we may have come upon. It's always here. We're nourishing it into the foreground of our conscious awareness. And feel free to linger where you are for as long as you want now. When it does feel time to begin to move, before you move a muscle, just let your eyes open and close several times and welcoming this quality that you've encountered, bringing it with you so that the world as it opens back up doesn't displace this. This begins to saturate our daily experiences, our daily life. So we're about at the top of our time together. So maybe at this moment, we'll just let everybody be as and have the experience they're enjoying and taking it with you into your nighttime sleep and tomorrow when you go off into your regular life. Thank you for our time together.